Hello, everybody. As much as I love Haiku, other operating systems have their point. And one that I've always been interested in was called Next Step. If you want to find out the whole history about that, well, it lives on in Mac OS today, but what I really like about it is the way it looked. Which was like this. Where we get here we go. None of this flat look, none of this blocks of color that are slightly different. No, everything is very utilitarian, functional, and it's gloriously skeuomorphic, which means that the icons, really high quality icons that look like real things. When Steve Jobs made this, he hired real artists to make these icons. And so I've always admired that. I've never had a Next Step machine myself. It has been duplicated in something called NuStep, and I actually have NuStep running on top of Debian in a different machine. Now, I didn't like everything about it. I mean, here you have these menus that sort of float somewhere on the screen, which change depending on which program you're running. And that can be very confusing. You can see when they turned Next Step into Mac OS X, as it then was, they moved it back to the top of the screen where it had been in the classic Mac. The one thing I really liked was this launcher. This wasn't your main launcher, by the way. The thing worked with a right click on the desktop, actually. But this was, first of all, for programs that you used all the time. And you also had these dock apps, because this thing is called the dock. With your tiny little programs that run in a 64 by 64 tile. And look, it's got light effects, it's got shadows, it's got really beautiful icons in it. I love it. So I'm now thinking, could I do something like that on Haiku? And so what I'm going to share with you is something I've made. And this will be at least 3 lessons worth in YAB to approximate that. Not the whole thing. I mean, that's a year's work. What I've got is one tile that will launch one program, styled edit, why not? And that's just in which I developed the framework of what this is going to be. So I'm working ahead here. So what it's going to end up look like is like that. See? So that's just one tile. And click on it, and Style Edit opens. And you can see that it is, in fact, a YAB program. So I want to take you through these first 3 stages of this, and so you can just see how my thinking developed around this and how I started to construct this one thing, one little piece at a time. And in case you're wondering, programming in such a confined space is actually harder. Because remember I told you, YAB is very forgiving. Whether you start counting at 0, 0 or 1, 1, it'll look all right. That's not true if you're making a tiny little thing like that. If you're off by 1 pixel, people are going to see it. And you have to compensate. So let's see the very first version of this. So what was I thinking here? I was thinking this is your button, right, from which you'll launch tiled edit. And with this one, these tiny little buttons here, you can move it around the screen. There's a 5th button, it's not used at the moment. But you can also use your arrow keys. Or you can have L for left, R for right. You can say page down, and it goes all the way to the bottom. Page up, it goes all the way to the left. And arrow keys again. Home and end. And then at a later stage, I will paste a picture on top of that. We're not going to worry about that now. So let's have a quick look at that code. Let's put it in Coder. Okay. Right. Is this V1? Yes. Okay, so we set it up a few of the main variables. And the short name, this variable that I've got here, is also the name of the program that I want to launch with this. Right, so then targets, target dollar, target string is where exactly is this program. Right, make a little system call here. Now, but perhaps at some stage I want this to launch a favorite file or a bookmark. So if this system call doesn't give a result, then just give that bookmark name and let the system figure it out. Or tell the user to give a more precise designation. Right, we start at 128 by 128 and the tile is 64 by 64. For no other reason than that is what size it was on the original next step. Right, so we open a window, we set some flags for it, And then we have one big button. Right, this big button here. And don't worry for now how we're going to get a picture on top of that. Right, and then we also have some tooltips. Right, and for each button it has a slightly different tooltip. Right, we get into our main loop, and all of this main loop is a bit tricky because it runs on two different inputs, key input and button input. Right, so either you give one of the keys to move the thing around the screen, and the idea is that this will be part of a launching system. So your user is going to put it in position once and then leave it there. At the moment, this thing can't remember where it was placed last yet, but we'll get there. Right, and then you have all these different ways of checking what is the input and what am I supposed to do with it. And then at the end, as you see here, the pop-up menu, which hasn't been written yet, we clear the two inputs so that we can go back all the way up to the start of the main loop and start again until somebody presses Q, which is the one way to exit this tiny little program. Okay, so this is up on the Git server. You will see, if you want to look ahead, the next two versions are there as well already. Excuse me. And so if you want to see how it develops from here, feel free. But this really is just the bare bones. It'll launch and it can move around, and that's it. There's going to be a lot more that we do with this little thing. Thanks for watching.